Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask DeAnna Anything. I am an Ayurvedic practitioner, my body mapping educator, lymphatic specialist, and a DeAnna Essentials formulator. I just want to mention that nothing is TMI for me. I talk about everything under the sun, the moon, and beyond. So I am excited for some great questions today. I already have a nice lineup to get us started. And I just also want to mention our mission at the DeAnna Essentials. This is a place for all people to heal, learn, and grow. We provide a community of support to empower individuals with knowledge, tools, and skills for their optimum health. And this has been my mission since I started DeAnna Essentials, which was formerly DeAnna Center. And that was now, believe it or not, 27 years ago. Wow. So, maybe that is my opener. You can see I am all by myself today. I am flying solo. And Abby is one of our questions who usually joins me in this adventure every other Thursday morning at 9 a.m. And Abby has a very important question for us today, which is going to be about COVID recovery. So we will get to that for sure. And I feel like it's a very important conversation. But as my opener, before I get to these questions today, I just spent an entire weekend at the Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium, and I will be there again tomorrow throughout the next weekend. There's 2 weekends, and I have a camp there called Areola, which also is ran by Jana Kruger at the Spirit Weavers each year. And what we do at the Areola is we do chest and breast checks. And it's been very, very powerful. We did 189, I believe. I think that might have been the ending number. Well, anyway, it was a lot. And, some of those people did not have breasts and they had a chest that they chose from top surgery, and other people had a chest that they didn't get to choose, but it was necessary because they, had a mastectomy, and other people had breasts they love and wanted to make sure they were really, really cared for. Other people had chests that they didn't love, and they really were wondering if it was working for them in their identity. So, wow. And then there's the how brave were these humans over this weekend and the weekend to come? How brave is it to put yourself under somebody else's care and hands and head and heart and allow them to investigate? So, of course, our job was to educate on the lymphatic system. And here's our heart, and here's our lymphatic drain. And it even goes all the way through the armpit to the center of the chest. And there is nowhere in the body where there is not lymph vessels or lymph nodes, literally everywhere. And it is our thorough way for all of our hormones. And it's the thorough way for all of our immunity and our ability to have something come to our rescue and support us hormonally or foreign invader wise, and even in injury. So, wow, how important is it to keep this river of life open and really able to come to our rescue? So, how brave were these humans to get on the table and allow us to investigate and look and find and talk about maybe, dry lymph nodes that were matted to the sternum and chest? So probably the most common thing that we found this weekend. And those feel like little lumps when you find them because they're lymph nodes that are, literally have dried out and have matted. And so you're wondering, what is that lump there? And so, wow, how powerful was it to help these humans to look at what is a lymphatic lump and what is maybe a lump that we don't want to find. And out of these, over, I'm sure it was in the in the hundreds there. I don't know if I have an exact number. I'm not sure about that. But out of all of these women we saw, we did find three suspicious lumps that we're going to be tracking with these humans and really making sure that hope we're wrong and hope it's something else, but didn't feel right, didn't feel like a lymph node, didn't act like a lymph node. And we are now wanting to make sure that we are in the follow through of great health because they're tiny and they might even be like before even stage 1 if it is cancer. And how powerful is that? I left driving home like, wow, I could cry right now, but like, there's the possibility that I just saved, 3 lives. And honestly, somebody on the table said to me who's been seeing me for years and said, wow, I've really missed you in the last 3 years during COVID, not getting my breast checked, but I know that I can do it myself. And you taught me what I need to know to face my fears and to see what's what. And they were like, DeAnna, how many lives have you saved? Like, how many lives do you think you've saved? Because I taught numerous people how to check their breasts, and somebody came to me and had a tiny little sandy bit, and I said, you better go in for that. And I was speaking your language, and I was, embodying you and helping my friends. So like, what is the ripple effect that's been created here? And it just really has been sitting with me with the DeAnna Center, DeAnna Essentials being 27 years next, November. And me in my practice for 33 years. And I'm just like, wow, I really feel super good about the impact I've made. And I still feel so humbled to the fact that like, none of this elemental medicine and none of this really belongs to me. I just love helping people feel empowered around their health and being able to say, this is my body and I can touch my body and I can investigate my body and I can really dive in and say, does that feel right or not? And let me go and figure out what I'm going to do. So where did I have these humans start? Where did I have them start when I said, hey, I hope I'm wrong, but we need to get this thing checked and we got to face this fear and I will help you. I'm with you in this journey. I'll help you. But I sent them to QT imaging in Marin. And one of the women on the table told me that another QT imaging just opened in Santa Rosa, but I haven't investigated that yet. So I'm like, yeah. And let's hope those keep propping up, and they're ultrasounds that are very, very refined and specific and very incredibly deep care when you go to this center, QT Imaging in Marin. So I'm a huge fan of ultrasound, and I think it's one of the best ways to check your chest and your breast, and to remember we're all in this together, no matter what gender you identify to. If you were alive and you were a human, you know, um, we need to be investigating and really checking in when we find something. And I just, I'm very honored to be able to do this work in the world. And may we have more of these areola clinics, coming around. And I'm just going to make a shout out to the idea that if you want to gather, a group of humans who were wanting to get these checks and take a weekend course, that is an option. And you might want to contact info at DeAnna Center and see if it's an option for me and my team members to come around your way and do a workshop and do a clinic. And if it's not me able to do it, I do have some really seasoned practitioners who may be able to do that entire thing themselves and bring a group together. And they might be right in your area. So that would be good to know. So contact us if you're interested in seeing one of these clinics in your area and you'd like to help us with that. Yeah. So here I am being a tech person, which is so hilarious for anyone who really knows me, but I feel like I'm doing pretty darn good here. Abby, I hope you're proud. Um, and I'm just going to get to a few of these questions and see what is in store for us today. Question number 1. This is an anonymous question. And it is, hello, I have a question around stomach acid. Growing up, I dealt with heartburn, stomach aches, and indigestion all the time. I ate TUMS like candy. I have since changed my diet and do not deal with any heartburn. Ooh, you're doing good. Started working with a practitioner who is all about strong stomach acid for better health and nutrient absorption. I have a feeling we're talking about hydrochloric acid. This is in line with Ayurvedic Agni and how we need strong stomach acid to stay healthy. I have been taking Beltaine HCI and pepsin. I can take 12 to 15 tablets without any burn. Whoa. I clearly need to support my stomach acid. However, hate taking so many pills. I hear you. What are your thoughts on how long one needs to take them? Do they help create your own stomach acid for future? Would love to know your thoughts and ways to naturally build and keep a strong Agni. Okay. Wow. There are some great things I know about this question. So I'm really excited to dive into this. And let's see, how much time do we have? Because we have other questions, right? So I'm just going to dive into this as quickly and swiftly as I can, but give you some great advice. So first off, let's talk about this word Agni, because everybody here may not really know what that is, right? So Agni it's a word of action. It's ruled by Pitta, but you don't want to think it's just about fire, and in fact, we should be thinking it's more about fire and water. Because that's what Pitta really is. We don't want to get too stuck that Pitta is just fire. It's actually fire and water working together. And that's when fire is safe and functional. And it's about assimilation and absorption. Okay. So we have way more seats of fire than just in the stomach. But the stomach fire, Agni, is called Jatar. Jatar Agni, Jatar, Jatar, Agni. And that is our stomach fire. But if we were really going to look at the seats of fire, we have many of them in our body. And we have our constitutional Agni, which drives us to act and be and become who we are. Yeah. We have an Agni action of Vata in action, Pitta in action, Kapha in action, called the dosha Agnis. We also have Indriya Agni, and it's from the Karma Indriyas, which are our 5 senses. Touch, smell, taste, sound, sight, all have their own Agni action. We have pancreatic Agni, we have liver Agni, we have an Agni for every single tissue: lymph, blood, muscle, skin, bones, nerves, and reproductive. So I'm just broadening the idea that we have an action, which is the word Agni, for every single fundamental part of how we tick. And so we're always in our Ayurveda tracking. If I'm looking at like the pancreas, or let's use the stomach here as the example, right? If I'm looking at the stomach, I need to know that we need a certain amount of hydrochloric acid, and that's the healthy word acid, of heat, which is going to be able to cook the food, because our stomach is our compost pile, right? And we need to be able to cook that to turn it to chyme, CHYME, which is stomach liquid. We need to turn our macronutrients, right? A vegetable, and we need to be able to liquefy it and turn it into nutrients to get to all of the rest of the body, right? So that's what Agni does, is it's the fundamental ability to have enzymes, hydrochloric acid, liquid flora, and our gastrin hormone, and also our pepsin. So hydrochloric acid is like is the acid part of our pH, and pepsin is the alkaline aspect of our pH. So often the hydrochloric acid is paired with pepsin, like the supplement that this person is taking, because we want to make sure you're not just hot, 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 and you have the balance of a little bit of cold. So let's remember, in pH, the word acid is not a bad word. It means heat. And the word alkaline means cooling. So it's about heating and cooling and the balance between. Okay? And this Agni is not just about the hydrochloric acid. That's just the hot part of Agni in the stomach. Okay? It's about the balance. So the Agni is literally about, do you have liquid to break down your compost pile, which means your food should be so wet and so like soupy, brothy stews. It should be so wet it would roll off a plate. And that's what I tell people all the time when I want them to eat really, really wet food. I'm like, think about your food being so wet it would roll off a plate. You must eat out of a bowl. So we have to have the liquid, and that's part of the flora. Our flora microbiome is called mucin, right? And mucin is the wet mucus lining, so that when food is breaking down in the stomach, it puts out a little bit of this wet, product to be able to break it down. Think about if you have a compost pile and it's running too hot, or it's burning really dry. You're going to put a hose to it. You're going to put some water on it, and you're going to make sure that it has the ability to keep churning, because we need liquid to do so. The other part of that, so that's the need for flora. So if you're on hydrochloric acid and you're trying to build your stomach fire and you're still at 12 to 15 pills, which I totally agree with you, that's too many pills. That's not sustainable long-term, even if it's helping you short-term. You're going to have to get more liquid exchange happening. And I really want to invite you to consider my ebook on water hydration, because yes, eating out of a bowl is going to help you, but you need electrolytes to cycle water. You need omega oils to absorb water. And then the other one that's my trying is probiotics. So probiotics is how we build up that wet, juicy flora, because that's what lives in there as our microbiome, is that, juicy flora. Now, what else lives in that juicy flora? Our hydrochloric acid and our pepsin, and that's where we store it. We store that hydrochloric acid and pepsin in a flora lining in the gut. And then as food comes through, it sends a little alkaline pepsin, it sends a little acidic hydrochloric acid, and it sends it out into the food to heat it up or cool it down with the liquid. So hopefully you're having a big old epiphany right now, which is that hydrochloric acid you're taking is working for you, but it's not getting stored. You got to store the hydrochloric acid so that you start getting a churn with that hydrochloric acid sooner and sooner, which means less and less and less pills. So you could be at that dosage forever working, but it's not building up and accumulating, because usually we have an accumulation of hydrochloric acid and pepsin, and then we just use it on demand until we run out. Yeah. So this is a key component. And usually if somebody's at this dose and they can't get lower, I'm going to put them on Megaspore by Microbiome Labs, because Megaspore is going to have early colony leadership, some pre and probiotic, and you're going to build up a colony, and that's going to build up your flora lining. So this could be very well the missing component here is going to be, can you store hydrochloric acid versus just put it in there, use it, and then it The rest of it moves through the intestines and actually can dry you out, because that's too much hydrochloric acid in a buildup accumulation without anywhere to live. So we need to make sure your hydrochloric acid has a place to live. That's kind of the bottom line here. So I'm going to be all about probiotics. Love probiotic foods. That's how I sustain myself. I don't take pills unless something strips my system out. But these pills are very important when you're already stripped out. And the food isn't going to really get you there, but you still want to eat, your apple cider vinegar and get on some good cultured kefir and, maybe make a coconut kefir. Think about your kraut, but I wouldn't go with food only. I would use that to just like boost this up and give your probiotic a little bit of a superfood to play with. So that is the primary answer. So now we've talked about like, what is Agni, seats of action. Jatthar Agni, which is stomach Agni, is the primary Agni beyond your constitution, because who you are is who you are, and it has its own Agni. We come in with it, and it doesn't change. It's our RNA, DNA. But the stomach Agni, why is it so important? And I love that Ayurveda has taught me this, because it's the first organ. It's the first organ. I mean, maybe we could call brain the first organ because we eat our emotions and we eat what we want to eat or what we think we should eat, but the first organ that food is going to and feeding nutrients to. So the stomach is not talked about enough. I talk about it all the time, and it's often the key to someone's digestive issue, even when it's been lifelong, or like 20 years, or like, why can't I figure this out? And it often starts with the flora and then the storing of the hydrochloric acid and the pepsin from there. So I really hope that helps you with this answer. The other thing I'm going to mention here is you may want to get some HCl without pepsin. Okay, now it's safer with pepsin. So I'm giving you a little like heads up. Watch what you're doing, watch if you overheat, but you may want to get your probiotics going for like a month, that megaspore, get a little coating, start really upping those probiotics in food. And then you may want to do, a couple weeks of just straight hydrochloric acid, so it doesn't have the pepsin buffer. And that'll give you a big old boost of hydrochloric acid, which then can get stored in your flora. And then you would just do that for a couple of weeks, and you would go back to the hydrochloric pepsin, and hopefully that would start really shifting things in the way you store it. And that means you're going to start getting that churn. And, if people don't know hydrochloric acid, and then I'll move on to the next question, but if people don't know hydrochloric acid and how it works, you take one pill a half hour before meals, and you see if you get a churn or like a little heartburn, a little like niacin flush. It's like, whoa, hot flash. And if you don't, in the next meal, you take 2, don't get a churn, 3, next meal, 4, next meal, 5, next meal. So really what this person is telling us is it takes 12 to 15 pills for this person to get a churn and to really feel that hydrochloric acid activating. And I have seen this before. So it's a thing that can be real. The other thing I'm going to tell you is to eat more pungent spices and foods, peppery foods. Think about like getting some nasturtiums and eating them, or basil, or arugula, or watercress, or mustard greens, or like a little bit more cayenne, a little more spicy. And you also want to think about all the things that have a little bit of sulfur in them: garlic, asafoetida, a little bit more leeks. These are all things that actually are hydrating and have a lot of hydrochloric acid in them. That'll just give a little bit of a blood kick to get things moving. Yeah. So I really hope this answers this question. And what a great question that was, because man, have I worked that zone on the stomach and the importance of it. Okay, question number 2. Hello, I would love to know your thoughts on glandular supplementation. I hear so much about it and curious your thoughts on adding a glandular to one's protocol. I am curious about adrenal and thyroid, thyroxine taken out for someone who deals with thyroid issues. Thank you for all you do. Aw, thank you. Okay, so let's see. How do I answer this question? I guess I'm going to answer this question in I'm going to go just a few directions, but I'm probably going to be a little more short and sweet because usually when people come to me about glandular, I kind of have a short and swift answer. And I know I'm not necessarily the expert. And the person, if you are local, and you could probably even do a Zoom with this person if you're not, but I would go to Bridget Grusecki over at what is it called? At the, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of that fabulous store that Lily has. And anyway, you will find it. Oh my gosh. But I would go to a naturopath. That's my bottom line. I would go to a naturopath and I would talk to them more about what they know about glandular. They're a little more versed in it than me. And I think quality is going to be everything, right? It's got to be like some serious primo quality if I'm going to take parts of, strains or maybe from like bovine, and if I'm going to add that glandular in. But my short and sweet answer to this is like, I have seen it work. So I have clients who are under, a naturopath's care who are taking it. I have totally seen it work. So I do see the value. But I do think my innate or my kind of intuitive sense is that it's a little bit shorter lived. I don't think it's going to be a long-term supplement. I think it's a big old 3-month booster. And maybe that's even a 3-month booster every year. But I feel like there's something about you making sure your own glands are not just being fed medicine, but are really learning how to function better on their own. So I do want to remind you that this isn't going to change the function of your adrenals or your thyroid, but it is going to supplement your adrenals and thyroid. So I think there's a little bit of a bigger question here that becomes more about thyroid and adrenal care in general. So I'm not against it, but I just have a sense, and I've noticed with clients that once they've been on it for about 3 months, they're like, man, I was feeling like $100. And like, now I don't know if this is working anymore. So I think it kind of boosts things up and saturates the thyroid and the adrenals with a superfood that's very homeopathic because it's same, thyroid, adrenal. But I think it doesn't continue that value as a superfood, and it sort of, saturates the gland, and then your gland kind of needs a little bit of a break. So I think go on and off and talk to a naturopath, but I'm not against it. It never has kind of said to me like, no, this is a bad idea by any means, it just feels short term. So that's kind of where I'm going to place it. I do think you should be under someone's care, and you should be talking to somebody who really, really knows where to get this clean, organic, not any kind of fillers, not synthetically made. So if I was going to go and look for this item myself, I would be wanting to make sure that it wasn't synthetic and kind of a mimicking picture, and that I was getting it straight from like really, 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 really healthy cow. And let's do remember, because people are like, oh, but it's from a cow. And I'm like, well, we do end up throwing away all that byproduct. So maybe it's not a bad idea to use it. And the other one is, let's remember the cow is sacred in India. I'm staring at a cute little brass cow right now that I got that's like leaning down on its little front, hooves. And it sits right next facing my Ganesha, so that I'm always feeding Ganesha ojas. I'm always feeding Ganesha juice and nutrients so that there's the energy to remove obstacles and keep life juicy. So I literally keep this beautiful cow on my altar because you see them all over India and in the temples, and people even put milk all over them and ask for what they desire because the cow is providing nutrients. So, we throw away that thyroid or we, use it. And I think if you're asking, I would put your hands to your heart as we continue with the next question. I would really put your hands to your heart and I would ask your body and yourself, like, does this feel like the right thing to do as you're investigating it? Usually that's a heads up for me anyway. If someone's like, what do you think of this? I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, if you're thinking about it, there's probably some value to it because we don't trust ourselves enough when we have those instincts that like, ooh, that sounds good for me. Well, if it sounds good for you, I'd give it a go. Just remember with supplements, within 2 weeks, they should have a value of feeling better. So you're tracking embetterment. And is there a value of feeling better? That's the most important question for you to answer to yourself when you start a new supplement or a new plant. It doesn't have to make me feel all better, but I have to have some level of embetterment to say, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. Okay. Third question. What do you recommend for recovery after taking Plan B? Okay, this is a really great question. So Plan B, we know, is what we're doing to make sure that we made that the choice of miscarriage by choice is what I like to call this. We're wanting to ensure